My name is Lena, and I'm about to share how everything in my life flipped upside down on my very first wedding anniversary. Back then, I was living with my husband, Ryan, in a cozy flat tucked away in the Ninth District of Lyon. People around us thought we were the perfect couple. But inside our home, it was a totally different story. I had met Ryan 2 years earlier during a photo exhibit at the art studio where I worked. He had this warm, gentle way of speaking that pulled me in. Right away, at first, everything between us felt magical. But as time passed, he began changing. Ryan became quiet, often snapping at me for small things. I started to feel nervous around him, afraid that one wrong word would lead to an argument. So when Ryan said he wanted to do something special for our anniversary, I hoped maybe he was trying to fix things. He suggested a trip to the Velin Falls, in the Jura Mountains, the same place where we had shared one of our earliest dates. That gave me a small feeling of happiness. Maybe he still cared. We left early that morning. The drive was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. Ryan looked anxious, and he kept glancing over at me without saying much. When the silence got heavy, he just turned the radio up. As we drove, I thought about everything we had gone through, the good moments, and how they slowly slipped away. I wondered if this weekend would really change anything, or if I was just trying to hold on to something that was already gone after a long drive. We reached a quiet little village called Villet-sur-Bren. It was near the falls, hidden between thick woods and tall trees. Ryan parked near a trail and suggested, "Let's take a walk." He smiled, and for a second it felt like old times. I nodded, wishing we could find our way back to how things used to be. We walked down the path, the sound of rushing water growing louder as we got closer. Sunlight peeked through the branches, and the water sparkled like glass. It was beautiful, but something about Ryan still didn't feel right. I couldn't explain. I just felt tense. When we reached the big waterfall, Ryan suddenly stopped, turned to face me, but his smile was gone. His expression was strange, cold, and serious. "It wasn't a face I knew, Lena," he said. In a strange tone, "I've been thinking a lot lately." My chest tightened. Something felt wrong. I wasn't ready for what he said next. "I can't keep doing this. It's marriage. This life, it's not what I want." I stood frozen. "What are you saying?" "I thought this trip was to fix things." He laughed. "Oh, it wasn't. It was sharp and bitter." "No, Lena. I came here to end it." Before I could move or speak, his hand shoved me hard. Time slowed. I felt myself falling backward toward the cliff's edge, down into the roaring water. The last thing I heard was Ryan's voice shouting, "Finally free," like he had been trapped for a year. The freezing water knocked the air from my lungs. The river grabbed me like a toy, spinning me again and again. I kicked and reached upward, desperate to breathe, but every time I came up, another wave crashed over me. It felt like I was drowning forever. But then, out of nowhere, I remembered something. Warm memory of my dad teaching me how to swim in the lake near our house in Antray. I could hear his voice. "Don't fight the water, sweet Lena. Trust it. Breathe slow, float easy." That memory pulled me back from panic. I let the water hold me. I focused on my breathing and let the river carry me instead of trying to fight it. Bit by bit, I drifted toward the edge. After what felt like forever, my feet touched solid ground under the water, tired and hurting all over. I pulled myself up onto the shore. My clothes were ripped and soaked, cuts and bruises covered my arms and legs. I collapsed on the grass, gasping, my chest rising and falling fast. That's when the truth hit me like a punch to the stomach. My own husband had tried to end my life. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't some heat of a moment mistake. He had planned this. It meant every part of it. Tears rolled down my cheeks, mixing with the cold river water. The ache in my body was nothing compared to the hurt inside me. How could I have been so blind? How did I not see the cruel side of the man I loved? But through all the pain, something began to burn inside me fury. Slowly, that anger pushed away the sadness and fear. Ryan believed I was gone. He thought I was out of his life forever, but I had survived. That thought lit a spark in me, a strong will to fight back. I forced myself up, wincing with every step. I had to leave quickly. Ryan came to check the area and found me alive. He would finish what he started, even though I was limping. I walked along the riverbank, trying to get far away from the place where he pushed me. I needed help, but I also needed to think fast. One thing I knew: the soft, quiet Lena that Ryan thought he broke, that woman was gone. She didn't survive the fall. Someone new had taken her place, someone stronger who would never be treated like that again. As I kept walking through the woods, my mind spun with thoughts. I had to vanish. I had to make Ryan believe I was truly dead. It was the only way to stay one step ahead. But how? I had no phone, no money, nothing. Then I heard something in the distance, the sound of a car. I followed the sound and soon spotted a narrow road through the trees. This was my chance. Stepped out onto the roadside, hoping someone would drive by. It didn't take long. A dusty old Renault came around the corner. I waved both arms like crazy. The car stopped. A man in his 50s jumped out, his face full of concern. "Miss, are you all right? Were you in an accident?" I knew I couldn't tell him the whole truth. "Yes," I said, trying to stay calm. "I slipped near the waterfall. I just need some help." His name was Mark. Without a second thought, he helped me into the car and started driving toward the next village, Breville. As we rode through the countryside, stayed quiet, thinking hard. I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Ryan would find a way to twist the story. I had to vanish completely. When we got to Breville, Mark wanted to take me to the hospital. But I thanked him and kindly said I just needed to reach my family. He dropped me off at a small cafe downtown and gave me a bit of money to buy food. Now I was alone. I took a deep breath. This was it, my real beginning. Inside the cafe, I asked to use their phone. There was only one person I trusted enough to call my best friend, Maya. When she picked up, I nearly cried. "Maya, it's Lena. I really need your help. Please don't ask anything right now. Just ... Can you come get me from Breville and the Jura? I'll explain everything later. Serious, my life depends on it." There was silence on the line. Then she said, "I'm on my way. Text me the address. I'll be there as soon as I can." As I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. This wasn't the end. Ryan had tried to erase me, but I was still here, and I was just getting started. But he hadn't won. And now it was my turn to take control. The drive to Breville felt never-ending. Every bump in the road sent jolts through my aching body, each one a reminder of what I had endured at Bellin Falls. But more painful than my injuries was the deep betrayal, Ryan's betrayal. How could someone I once trusted with my whole heart try to end my life? Sitting on a bench outside the cafe where Mark had dropped me off, I waited, anxious, for Maya to arrive. The sun was setting, splashing the sky with warm orange and pink colors. People walking by gave me curious glances, probably wondering why I looked so messy with torn clothes and damp hair. Finally, after what felt like ages, I spotted Maya's small red Fiat pull up. She jumped out, her eyes quickly scanning the sidewalk. When she saw me, her face filled with shock. "Lena, oh my God, what happened?" she gasped, running to me. I stood up slowly, grimacing at the pain. Maya hugged me gently, careful not to hurt me. "It's a long story," I whispered. "Can we go somewhere quiet?" She nodded. "Okay." I booked a room at a little hotel not far. "From here, we can talk there." The ride was quiet. I could feel Maya's eyes on me, full of concern, but she didn't push me to talk. At the hotel, I collapsed on the edge of the bed while she sat beside me, waiting for me to open up. I took a deep breath and let it all out. The words poured from my mouth like a flood. I told her everything, how Ryan slowly changed, how distant and cruel he became. Then, I told her about our anniversary trip, how it turned into a nightmare. Maya's face changed with every word. Shock, anger, disbelief. That monster, she whispered through clenched teeth. You have to go to the police. He tried to murder you. I shook my head. Not yet. Ryan thinks I'm dead. That's the one thing working in our favor. Maya looked confused. What are you planning? I stood up, slowly pacing across the room, ignoring the pain shooting through my legs. If I go to the police now, it'll be his word against mine. He'll say I slipped. Who would they believe? A grieving husband or the wife who came back from the dead? Maya frowned. But you can't just let him get away with this. I won't, I said, my voice stronger. But I need to be smart. I want justice. And for that, I need evidence. I stopped walking and looked her in the eyes. I need your help, Maya. I need to disappear for now. Ryan can't know I survived. She stared at me for a moment, then nodded. All right, what do you need me to do? Relief washed over me. Having Maya by my side made all the difference. First, I need a safe place somewhere Ryan would never think to look. She thought for a second. My aunt has a small cottage in a village in Avenel. She rarely uses it. If I explain that you need a quiet space to recover, she'll say yes. I smiled. That would be perfect. I'll also need you to go to my apartment, grab clothes, my laptop, documents. But you have to be careful. Ryan can't suspect anything. Maya squeezed my hand. Don't worry, I've got this. He won't see it coming. We'll make sure he pays, Lena, I promise. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. Over and over, I saw Ryan's face, those cold eyes, as he pushed me off the edge. How did I not see the truth before? How could I have fallen for someone so dark? But one thing was clear through the pain and confusion. The gentle girl I had been no longer existed. The innocent and trusting Lena had vanished beneath the violent waters of Ellen Falls. In her place stood someone stronger, someone ready to fight back. The next morning, Maya and I began the trip to Avenel. The road stretched long and quiet. I stared out the window, watching the hills and trees roll past, trying to picture the life I now had to rebuild. How would I put the broken pieces back together after everything Ryan had shattered? Maya's aunt's cottage was tucked inside a tiny village named St. Orville, hidden in the peaceful folds of the Avenel Valley Nature Reserve. The house was made of stone with a gray slate roof and faded green shutters. It looked like something from a painting, so unlike anything I'd ever known. This is where you'll heal, Maya said softly, handing me the keys. No one will ever find you here. I hugged her tightly, overwhelmed by her kindness. Thank you, Maya. I mean it. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're stronger than you think, Lena, she said. You'll come through this. I believe in you. When Maya left, I was alone again. The silence inside the house felt huge. For the first time since the fall, I let the tears come. I cried for the life I'd lost, for the love that had turned out to be false, for all the trust that Ryan had crushed. But through the crying, something else took root inside me: willpower. I wasn't done. Ryan had tried to erase me, but I was still standing. And now I would fight back. The days that followed were hard. Every step reminded me of the fall. Every loud noise made me flinch. But slowly I started taking control again. I used my time to think, to plan. Maya brought me my laptop and a bag of things from the apartment. She told me Ryan had reported me missing to the police, playing the worried husband like a pro. The thought made my stomach turn. But I knew I had to stay calm. Patience was my best weapon now. I started collecting everything I could. I went through emails, old messages, saved photos. I found pictures of bruises I had hidden out of embarrassment. I wrote down the cruel things. Ryan had said to me in public, dressed up as jokes, but meant to hurt. Each day made me more certain. I wasn't his victim anymore. I was a survivor. And he would answer for what he did. One morning while drinking coffee on the small porch, an idea sparked in my mind. Ryan believed I was gone, but he had no idea that I was quietly building my case. For the first time in a while, I smiled. I picked up the phone and called Maya. "I need your help," I said. "Can you find me a lawyer? Someone who deals with abuse cases." "You sure about this?" Maya asked, catching the determination in my voice. More sure than ever, I answered. "It's time to take action. Ryan thinks this is over, but it's just the beginning." After the call, I felt a rush of energy shoot through me. Fear was still there, hiding deep inside. But it wasn't in charge anymore. I was. That night, I sat at my computer and began typing my story. With every sentence, I felt lighter. I wrote about how it all began, how things turned dark, the emotional. Armand, finally, the day he tried to end my life. Writing it all out hurt, but it also helped me breathe again. For the first time, I saw the full picture. I understood what I'd gone through, and despite it all, I was still here. I had survived. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of the real fight. Ryan had tried to silence me, but he had failed. Now it was my turn to speak. Each day passed slowly in that quiet home in St. Orval. Every morning I woke up with the same fire in my chest to make him pay. But I knew I had to move carefully, no rushing, no mistakes. One morning as I sat, with my cup of coffee on the porch, as the sun rose over the peaceful hills of Avenel, my phone buzzed beside me. It was Maya. "Lena, I've got great news. I found a lawyer who's willing to meet with you. He works specifically with domestic abuse cases." My heart skipped. This was it, the first real step toward justice. "That's perfect," I replied. "When can I see him?" "Next week, in Clermont-Bayonne. Are you ready?" I took a slow breath. Yes, it's time. After hanging up, I jumped into action. I had a week to prepare everything I had collected against Ryan. I went through my messages, photos, emails, every painful reminder of what he'd done. Each item was another piece of the truth. And another weapon I could use. The day of. The day of the meeting came. My heart was pounding as I arrived in Clermont-Bayonne. The law office was inside an old stone building in the city center. A man in his 50s greeted me with a firm but gentle handshake. "Miss Darrow," he said, "I'm sorry for what you've experienced, but I promise we'll fight for justice." His name was Mortier Laurent. Kay had a calm way of speaking that gave me comfort. For the next couple of hours, I told him everything. My voice trembled. Sometimes, but I didn't stop. I showed him the photos of my bruises, Ryan's threatening messages, stories from friends who had seen his cruel outbursts. He listened closely and wrote down everything. When I finished, he looked straight at me. "Lena, this is a strong case. But I need to be honest, it won't be easy. Your husband will likely deny everything. He'll say it was all an accident and pretend he thought you were dead." I nodded. "I know. That's why I need your help. I want to do this the right way. No shortcuts." He smiled. "That's the mindset you need. Here's what we'll do. We'll build a solid case, gather every bit of evidence, every possible statement, and then we'll file charges for attempted murder and domestic abuse." Hearing someone else say it out loud made my stomach twist. It suddenly felt so real. What happens next? I asked quietly. "Then we wait for the system to do its job. But it may take time. Are you ready for that?" I nodded again. Yes, I want justice, no matter how long it takes. As I left Mater Laurent's office, I felt a strange mix of weariness and hope. Since the day Ryan pushed me at Velen Falls, this was the first time I felt like I was moving forward. Back in St. Orval, I got to work again. The lawyer gave me a list. Collect more evidence. Reach out to old coworkers or friends who saw Ryan's behavior. Find any medical records of my past injuries. Each day I spent hours on calls or digging through files. I contacted neighbors, friends, even a few of Ryan's relatives, anyone who might have seen how he acted. Some didn't want to help. They were afraid, but others were relieved to finally talk. One evening, as I was finishing notes, a message from Maya lit up my screen. Ryan's asking around. Even called my parents to see if I've heard from you. Be extra careful. My stomach dropped. He was getting suspicious. From that moment, I tightened everything. No unnecessary messages, no phone calls unless I had to. The little house in St. Orville became my safe zone, my hiding place, and my war room. Day by day, my file grew. Going through those memories wasn't easy. I relived every ugly moment of our marriage. But this time, I was in control. Every piece of truth I added was one more step toward my freedom. Then one morning, as I sat with a cup of coffee and looked out over the valley, while working on my laptop, a bold idea suddenly crossed my mind. What if I could get Ryan to confess? If I could get him to admit what he did, even a little, it would be powerful. It could be the final proof that tipped everything in my favor. I called Moteur Laurent right away. It's risky, Lena, he warned. If your husband finds out, you're alive too soon. It could ruin everything we've built. I understand, I said, but just imagine the effect a confession would have in court, even part of one. It could change everything. After a long discussion, we created a plan. I wouldn't talk to Ryan directly. Instead, we would lead him into making a mistake, recruit him into thinking someone knew the truth. About my disappearance, the next few weeks were intense. With help from Moteur Laurent and a few trusted contacts, we set the plan in motion. We started spreading quiet rumors in our old neighborhood in Lyon. Some people said they'd seen me the day I vanished. Meanwhile, kept working on my case. Some days brought difficult memories, pictures of us smiling together, laughing like things had never gone wrong. They tugged at something in me, but I didn't let that stop me. I reminded myself that I was no longer that woman. I was standing up not just for myself, but for every woman who had ever been trapped in a relationship like mine. One evening, while I was reviewing my notes again, my phone rang. It was Moteur Laurent. Lena, he said, we've got something. Ryan took the bait. He contacted one of our fake witnesses. He even tried to pay them to stay quiet. We have the entire call recorded. My heart began pounding. This was exactly what we needed. Ryan had slipped. What do we do now? I asked, my voice shaking. Now, he said calmly, we file the complaint. We go public. Are you ready? I took a deep breath. This was the moment I'd been working toward for months, the moment where I would face Ryan. Not as someone broken, but as someone who had survived. Yes, I said firmly. I'm ready. I hung up and stepped outside. The sun was going down over the hills of Avenel, lighting the sky with orange and gold. It felt like a chapter was ending and a new one was waiting. I had survived the fall. I had survived the fear, the silence, the months in hiding. Now, I was ready to take back my story. I stepped out onto the porch, the cool breeze brushing my skin. Tomorrow was the beginning of something new. I was no longer the scared woman Ryan had left behind. I was the voice he couldn't silence. It was my turn now to speak the truth. For everyone to hear, night had arrived in St. Orville. But for me, it was the start of morning, a day of justice, a day of truth, and I was ready to walk into it. The day had finally come, after months of planning, gathering proof, and waiting. Patiently, I was going back to Lyon. I was ready to face Ryan. I stood in the small bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had changed. My hair was longer, my face thinner, but my eyes, they were sharp, focused, fearless. I was no longer the Lena who Ryan had tried to destroy. I had become someone new. Someone stronger. Maya was waiting. Outside in the car, she had refused to let me go alone. As we drove away from the little stone house that had kept me safe all this time, I looked back one last time. That place had been my shelter. But it had also made me stronger. The road to Lyon was long. Maya didn't say much. She understood I needed quiet to prepare. As we neared the city, I silently walked through the plan in my mind. Step by step, the plan Martyr, Laurent, and I had crafted was finally in motion. Every step needed to be perfect. As we drew closer to the heart of Lyon, my heart thudded faster. Familiar places flashed past the window, each one unlocking memories I had tried to forget. I saw the cafe where Ryan and I used to share Sunday breakfasts, the park bench where he kissed me for the first time. Every corner held feelings I didn't know how to name. Some sweet, others bitter. Maya pulled up outside the old building where Motar Laurent had his office. "You okay?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." It's inside. The air felt thick with tension. Motar Laurent walked us through everything again. "Ryan still doesn't know you're alive. Lena will file the charges first. After that, he'll be called in for questioning. That's when your role begins." I nodded, adrenaline buzzing in my veins. "What if he lies?" I asked. "We're prepared," he replied calmly. The recording of his attempted bribe along with everything else, we built a strong case. The next couple of hours passed in a blur. I filled out forms, gave answers, confirmed small details. It all felt distant, like I was watching someone else's life. And then the moment came. Ryan had been called to the police station. It was time. Maya walked with me to the entrance. She wrapped me in a hug. "You are the strongest person I know. Lena, you've got this." I gave her a shaky smile and stepped inside. Maître Laurent was waiting. He led me down a hallway to a small waiting room. "Stay here until someone comes to get you," he said gently. Time crawled. I heard footsteps and quiet voices outside the door. My heart pounded so loud I thought everyone could hear it. Then I heard a voice I recognized instantly. Ryan. He sounded irritated, demanding answers. My body froze for a second. Fear rushed through me. But I took a deep breath and remembered the months I had spent preparing for this very moment. The door opened. "Miss Darrow," a police officer said. "It's time." I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. Motar Laurent placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "Ready?" I gave a silent nod. We stepped into the room. Ryan sat with his back to me, facing two officers. When the door clicked shut, he turned. For a second, everything stopped. His eyes met Manand. His face changed in an instant. First shock, then confusion, then fear. And finally, the icy anger I remembered too well. "Lena," he said, barely above a whisper. I drew a breath. "Hello, Ryan." The officers began questioning him. But at first I didn't hear their words. All I could see was the man who had tried to end my life. He looked smaller now, less powerful. The fear he once controlled me with was gone. Bit by bit, the voices became clearer. The officers asked about the anniversary trip. Ryan started to explain, but his answers didn't match. He fumbled, changing details, stuttering. Panic was growing in his eyes. Then they turned to me. I spoke. At first, my voice trembled. But as I described our marriage, how the love had slowly turned into emotional abuse and threats, I grew steadier. I told them everything about that day. At Velen Falls, when he tried to silence me forever, Ryan jumped in, trying to deny it. But the evidence was too strong. Photos of bruises, messages, statements from friends. And most of all, the audio recording of his bribe attempt. As the questioning went on, I watched him break. The mask he wore for the world cracked. Behind it was the truth, cold, ugly, and real. Finally, after hours of during the final minutes of questioning, Ryan broke down. Fine, fine, he shouted. "I tried to kill her. She was going to leave me, ruin everything." A heavy silence filled the room. Tears rolled down my face. But for once, they weren't from fear, they were from relief. The officers stood and handcuffed him. As they passed me, Ryan looked back one last time. I'm sorry, Lena, he whispered, but I didn't. See regret in his eyes? Only anger. He was sorry he got caught. Once they took him away, my legs gave out. I dropped into a chair, unable to move. Mater Laurent gently placed a hand on my shoulder. It's over, Miss Darrow. You did it. I walked out of the police station in a daze. Maya was waiting near the steps, eyes filled with concern as she ran to me and wrapped me in a hug. How did it go? She asked. I broke into tears in her arms, all the months of stress and fear crashing over me. It's over, I whispered between sobs. He admitted it. Maya held me tighter. You did it, Lena. You're incredible. That night, I stayed with Maya. I wasn't ready to return to the apartment Ryan and I once shared. Lying in her guest bed, I stared at the ceiling, letting the truth sink in. I had survived. I had faced him, and I had won. It had been a painful, uphill battle, but I made it through. The next morning, I woke up with a feeling I hadn't felt in months: freedom. Ryan couldn't hurt me anymore. He was finally going to pay for everything. Maya offered to go with me to my old apartment to collect my things. I hesitated, but I knew I had to go. It was time to close that chapter. When we arrived outside the building, my chest tightened. Many memories, both good and bad, were tied to that place. But I wasn't going to let them overwhelm me. I stepped inside.